All right, so officially welcome to everyone. Nice to have you in the in a session, Henry, for the first time. I hope it's the first of many. I'm going to share my screen. So
is Henry in South Africa or UK?
No, in the UK, I believe.
Okay. Right, Henry.
I'm not. Where do you reside? Not that it really matters, but
No, she's on mute.
on mute, yeah. Yeah. So, would you like to read for us, Henry? So what we do is just read each paragraph, read the quote, read the paragraph. There's a bit of teaching in this that leads us nicely into the lesson. We do the same thing with each paragraph of the lesson. So it's interactive. You get a chance to read, and then I'll say, any ideas, comments, questions. So it's trying to get a deeper understanding of everything that you do read. So will you read that? Can you see the screen, everyone?
Yeah.
Henry, will you read the?
Oh gosh, I didn't know I was going to read out loud. Oh my God, that throws something up for me immediately.
Really?
Right, okay. Giving, I'm quite dyslexic. Well, that whole story, school and things. Giving and receiving are different expressions of the same flow of energy.
Yeah. So the quote usually is related to the lesson for today. Kind of leads into the lesson, and then there's a little bit of teaching on the quote, and then some teaching on the lesson. So if you read the first couple of paragraphs for us. This is the email, by the way, Henry. So you would get this email in the morning, and then we discuss it in the afternoon session. So you can read this on your own in the first thing in the morning. So if you can read the first couple of paragraphs.
What, me again?
No, the other Henry. The other Henry on the call.
Oh, good.
From in today's inspirational quote.
I'm sorry, have I misunderstood something, Jonathan? You wanted me to read this?
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry. I wasn't sure. In today's inspirational quote, Deepak Chopra states what should be obvious, but to most people who believe the material world is real, certainly isn't. In this world, it seems that if you give something material away, you lose it. So giving is associated with loss and avoided unless you think you're going to receive something of greater value in return. This mindset is the basis for what we call business and commerce in this world. We give our money, time, products and services only when we're confident that we'll receive something of more value in return. An exchange that's usually measured and fulfilled by money. And if we don't feel we've received good value from the exchange, we feel deprived and usually somewhat upset that we've seemingly lost out.
Okay, well done. So stop it there. Any thoughts on that? The principle of loss. You give something material away, you lose it.
I think it's correct, but it's a bit of a generalization.
Yeah.
I like giving things for nothing in return. I get a lot from just giving without anything in return. My experience has been.
But then you're not associating with the material.
No.
You see, so if you think that you're losing something of value and it's material and you've lost it, then giving is associated with loss.
Yeah.
And generally avoided unless you think you're going to receive something of greater value in return. So it's a getting, the ego is always, it was in the getting mindset. Well, what can I get from what I give? I'm never just going to give because it feels good to give. I'm going to give something, my time, my energy, my money. And in return, I expect something. So
does everybody feel like that?
I think probably it's as John says, it's a generalization, but I would say it's probably representative of the general population system. You see how the world works, how people operate in general. We have this, so-called business system, this economy, and it's based on these principles. We give out our money, time, products, and services only when we're confident we'll receive something of greater value in return. That's what commerce is about. You're not trained to give away your services for free. You're trained to, I give my products, my services, and I charge something for them. I charge money usually, and I get something that is of greater value in return. So I'm getting a good deal. And at the extreme of this, if you see companies and people who are in this mindset, they feel like they are gaining when someone else is losing. So the more they get out of their customer or out of their employees, the more they gain. So the more they exploit someone, the more they're gaining. But this is a thought system based on deprivation and scarcity and loss. So someone's always losing and someone's always winning. So remember, in the ego's thought system, you have winners and losers. There can never be only winners, because the ego's entire thought system is based on the idea of winning and losing. So we won our identity, separate identity, and at the cost of that was that we had to sacrifice truth. And so oneness and love was then denied, and so the ego's entire identity is based on winning and losing. It won its identity at the expense of God, and so then that's built into its entire thought system. It's a win-lose model. You think of the other day we were talking about Sally. We were talking about Wimbledon. It's crazy. The contest we set up, there's only one winner in the whole tournament. So there's hundreds of players and only one person in that particular version of the tournament. Let's say the men's draw or the women's draw. Only one man and one woman comes out feeling like a winner and really good about himself or herself. Everyone else feels like a loser on some level. And that's the way we set up the game. So we set up a game like that, and then we wonder why we feel deprived and we feel a sense of loss, because we've set it up that way. And we don't have to. It's simply by changing our mindset and seeing that this is just a thought system. Sacrifice and loss are not actually possible in truth. You can't lose the truth. You can't lose love and peace and joy. This is not possible. That's the way out of this. But as long as you root it in the material world, then you're going to associate giving with losing, and the ego's got a hold in your mind and in your life.
The reason I say I feel it's a bit of a generalization is, I think it is true, but in my own business career, the best clients I ever had and the best contracts we ever won were not on this basis. They were always initiated in something bigger.
Yeah, but so there's absolutely another way of doing business. And, but I think John, you were probably unusual. There's not many business owners who study A Course in Miracles and are deeply committed to spiritual principles in their business. You're an exception rather than a norm, but it is possible to do it. This thought system of love and miracles can apply in business just as much as they can in daily life, in any aspect of life. So there is another way of doing it, but generally, our culture, our society is based on this idea of losing. Generally, do you think of most companies as, they really do care about their customers, and they really care about the employees, and they're good corporate citizens, and actually they're in it for the service. It's really about the service and not the money. Is that generally something that you say most businesses operate according to? Or is it generally it's the mindset is, I'm in business to make money, which is a misperception.
I think the people that we did business with were more of that mindset than just
you attracted them. So I think it does happen, but I think it's still the minority view. I think in the majority, general business still works on this principle of win, lose, sacrifice, and that it's really materially oriented. I don't know if you listen to Simon Sinek. I posted his, and he says I'm actually ashamed that I have a career because I shouldn't be needing to talk about this stuff. He's talking about these kinds of principles, about the infinite game, and he's saying I shouldn't need to talk about this because this should be the way business works and it shouldn't need to be discussed. But he says, I have a career because it's very much needed. And in fact, mostly business runs on the opposite principle. And that's why, someone like him has an audience, because he's running counter to that and saying, look, we've got it all wrong. And here's another way of thinking about it and of doing business. And then, people respond to that. And so one of his videos that I posted today had 6 million views. So there are people who are open, interested in this, who are listening. But I'd say it's still not the norm. It's still the exception to the norm. It's a counterculture rather than the standard culture.
And on an individual basis, quite often spiritual people are very good at giving and not receiving.
Yeah.
That works the other way as well, doesn't it? That it's deemed not to be spiritual to receive.
Yeah, which is, if you look at today's quote, today I learned to give as I receive. It's both. I can't do one and not the other. I must receive and give, because there's no loss. If I'm only giving and I'm not receiving, and that's in my mind, that's my perception, then I will still believe in the idea of loss. And then often what happens with so-called giving people is that it turns around on them and they get resentful. They go, well, I'm just giving and giving and giving, and I'm not really getting anything back. And I feel like I'm being used and exploited, and there's a resentment that builds up, all of which is, coming from the ego. And yet it's their own misperception of giving and receiving, because actually on some level they don't feel that they're worthy of receiving. So then they'll give and give and give, and then block the receiving because they don't feel they're worthy. So it needs to be both sides of the equation, because giving and receiving are just aspects of the same law. It's oneness, and we experience it as, oh well, then I'm giving and then I'm receiving. But actually, in truth, there's only one love. There's one mind. There's one love, and that's what underlies all giving and receiving. So this is another lesson in learning that, which he repeats many times. This giving and receiving is a theme that runs through the whole course. Okay, so are we happy with that? Well done, by the way. I thought let you go for 3 paragraphs because you were in a bit of flow there.
Yeah, no, that was fine. Thank you.
Yeah,
Overcome up there.
Yeah, nothing too scary. It's all fun. So next paragraph. Anyone like to read that? Therefore, what we call business.
Yeah, I'll do it. Therefore, what we call business is really just a belief in sacrifice and loss masquerading as something respectable. It has nothing to do with true giving and receiving. That is always of the universal energy. Deepak points out in today's quote, which, in case you're wondering, is also called love. The exchange of, shall I carry on? The exchange of loves.
I'll just pause it there. So let's unpack that paragraph. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's giving and receiving love. Yeah.
So this busyness of the world that believes in sacrifice and loss has really nothing to do with true giving and receiving at all. So it's a distortion of that. And because of that, when we engage in that kind of activity, it's kind of soulless. It leaves us feeling not fulfilled spiritually and kind of empty and a little bit broken and dysfunctional, because it's not based on the giving and receiving of this universal energy called love. It's based on the ego's false idea of winners and losers, and I gain, someone else loses. And if you believe in that thought system, then it is going to be ultimately dysfunctional and depressing for you. But there is a way, as John says, in business where you can do this true giving and receiving of the universal energy of love. So if your mindset is not about what I can get, it's about service. And how can I, really what you're doing with your business is you're giving love in a certain way. There's a specific form that love takes, which usually is the form of a product or service that is of value to people that they're willing to pay for. But that's the primary intention is the giving and the sharing of love in, whatever way, shape, or form you specialize in. And then the monetizing of that is the secondary. Okay, well, in order to make this a sustainable business and not a charity or a non-profit organization, we charge money. We charge a fair a fair value for it. But that is a secondary, that's a consequence that comes out of the primary intention of giving and sharing love. Now, if your business's intention is only to share love and to give love, and you trust that the returns financially and in other ways will be there because you're doing it in the right spirit, that's the right way of doing it. That's the miraculous way of doing it. You're now not basing your business on a thought system of scarcity and loss and how much can I get, and the only thing of value is the material. So do you see how they associate? The scientific materialist paradigm really is built on the idea of just the material is valuable. So if that's your mindset, then you're going to only look to the material for satisfaction. So the business that we know, the sort of hard, cold, win-lose capitalist, worst of capitalist model is based on a paradigm, the scientific materialist paradigm, which is pervasive in our society. It's the fundamental religion of our world. Religion is just a belief, a dogma, and a belief in something, some theory that's not necessarily true, but it's a dogma. So I'm just going to open this and show you a diagram, which will be familiar to most of you, but not necessarily to Henry. So this is the integral model, which I refer to quite a bit. It was created by a guy called Ken Wilber, who is a philosopher of note. He's read a lot of, probably the most widely read man in the world, spiritual teachings, philosophy, psychology, and he wanted to put it all together into a simple model that explained it, and he came up with this what he calls the integral model. So what you have is a 4-quadrant diagram. Really, you've got these two axes. You've got interior and the exterior on the one axis, and individual and collective on the other one, and then where they intersect, there's 4 quadrants. So individual intentional is individual values, your priorities, your motivations, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, which is really what Course in Miracles and any spiritual teaching is working with primarily, is that domain of your individual experience. But that gets projected out as behavior. So our intentions lead to behavior, and then we have observed behaviors and performance outcomes, and there's a feedback loop going on. Those feed back in to the intentions. So you now have a reinforcing of whatever intentions you had through the behavior and the performance outcomes. You go, oh, well, that intention must be true. So it's a continuous feedback mechanism. When that gets collectivized, it becomes a culture. So sum total of individual intentions of a group of people become the culture of an organization, of a whole society, which is just a set of beliefs and values, which then get extended out or manifested as systems. So systems are collective patterns of behavior, and then we see this in organizational structures and processes, and the way society operates, and the rules of rules of anything. That's the systems. So that's the integral model, and it's all linked in. It's not, these quadrants are not separate from each other. They relate to each other. So you can't just, what the scientific materialist paradigm has said is it's cut off the interior domains, and it said these don't really exist. So your individual intentions and cultural collective intentions don't really exist. All that's real, all that you can really rely on is the tangible, the material, in scientific materialism. So it focuses exclusively on behavior, on performance outcomes, on the systems, and largely our business systems come out of that mindset. So now we're obsessed with behaviors, with outcomes. So it's all about your performance, and you measure it by money, and what are your numbers, what's your quarterly performance, and if you don't hit your targets, then there's problems. And so it's not really acknowledging that this is driven by the internal, by the interior. And so then it might do unconscious things like lay off employees to save money, and causing a lot of fear and stress. It might treat customers badly. and it all seems to be justified because we haven't hit our numbers and we need to get our numbers up. So we've got to make more profit. So therefore, whatever we do is justified. The end of profit justifies the means, and that that's a representative by and large of the current business system we've created. There are exceptions to it. There are people like Simon Sinek teaching the truth. There are organizations that live that way, that work differently, and those are generally the star performers. They stand out in the industries. Think of an organization like Apple, maybe, and there's been others in different industries, Southwest Airlines, and they are the standouts who play an infinite game. They're not basing their entire business model on a finite game of, well, how much profit have we made, and let's try and beat the competition. The infinite game is we here for a long time to add value to our customers. Our purpose is to add value, and to continue to do so, we need to be sustainable. So it's a very different game that they play, and they tend to win because their mindset is not a win-lose mindset, and it's not temporary. It's infinite and eternal, which connects in with this teaching of infinite eternal permanence rather than the temporary world that the ego's invented. So that just gives you a bit of context. The model maybe helps you understand what we're talking about here about business, just a little bit better and easier, which is why I use it. So any questions on the integral model?
Not on the model, but I find it very interesting that business is called busyness.
Yeah.
The busier you are, the less it is quite often, isn't it? Unless you're very
Yeah, they took out the Y to sort of disguise it a bit. But actually it's, busyness, the busyness of the mind. And we think that, it's all important and real, and we're trying to achieve real objectives. But too often it's just about perpetuating the ego's thought system, which is what the traditional model of business is all about. It's just perpetuating a false thought system of win-lose, scarcity, loss, suffering. However, there's another way of doing it. The Holy Spirit can reinterpret everything, so that this form we call business can be reinterpreted and given a different meaning, and can be part of your spiritual growth and your awakening into something higher. And then it can actually be a very satisfying experience because you're seeing it differently, and you're focusing on what's true and important, which is the giving and receiving of this universal energy or love in the business. And if you focus on giving that energy, then you receive it. That's how it goes. You give freely, you receive freely in so many amazing ways, and that fills you up. That's that goes way beyond the commercial of, oh well, I'm just doing this to make money. It's actually satisfying because you're giving love and you're connecting with people, and the business becomes so much more than just busyness, and so much more than just about making money. So there is a profoundly different way of doing it. And I would say, I've said this before, but A Course in Miracles, in my view, is the best business training you could ever have. Kind of, a lot of business owners would go, really? Because it's training your mind. And you're training your mind to perceive everything differently, and apply this really to a thought system of problem solving, solve the problems of time and space in an entirely different way. Well, that's pretty applicable to business. Business is a series of challenges and problems you've got to solve to ultimately meet an objective. But what is that objective, first of all? And that's a decision in the mind. And then the actual practical daily problem solving can be really facilitated by a rigorous mind training program like this. So a lot of, I give you a good example of how false thinking can actually destroy a business, a very big business. There was a company called Kodak. You probably heard of them. One stage they were the biggest film company in the world. They dominated the before the days of digital photography. They dominated the industry, And they actually invented, one of the employees invented digital photography. You probably didn't know that because they weren't at the forefront of it. But in 1975, this employee invented it, and he said to them, "Look, I've got something. Have a look at it. What do you think?" And they suppressed it. Said no, because this is going to hurt our film sales. So what they did was they defined themselves as a film company who need to sell film, and they forgot their purpose. Their purpose was to help people to enjoy photography, to enjoy being able to take pictures and enjoy those pictures however they looked. Didn't have to look like film and that technology. It could look like, oh yes, we're going to help people to take digital photos now. So they forgot their purpose, and they got obsessed with just the form of it and how it happened, and then the numbers, because they didn't want to lose their film sales. And of course 10-15 years later they went bankrupt because they hadn't evolved, and other people then took on the digital photography, and they fell behind, and they went out of business because they didn't stay true to their purpose. They got lost in thinking that it was all about the form, the money, and the film sales was the form of the business, but they forgot the underlying purpose. If they'd really been tapped into their purpose as executives, they would have embraced that technology and said, great, this will allow us to fulfill our purpose even better, and we're going to trust that if we do that, the value will come. And yes, our film sales, our current model will decline, but then we now have a new model, a new technology we can sell, and we'll make money from that. So there was a lack of purpose, a lack of faith, a lack of trust. They couldn't let go of the old model. They were too attached to the sales that they had and the success that they had, so they couldn't let go and actually be willing to destroy that business in order to reinvent themselves and become something new that was actually better, that served their purpose even better. And so all of those were a lack of spiritual awareness and false thinking, and that destroyed the company, and it was a $1 billion company. So this is very, very pertinent to business success or failure. If they'd studied A Course in Miracles, they wouldn't have made those mistakes. So there's an example, and that's happened many times. That's not an isolated example. There's many companies who've been dominant at one stage, and then their dominance slipped, and often they went under. And you go, well, how did they lose the plot? And there was always a problem of thinking. It was a perceptual problem that they had. They couldn't adjust their thinking. So this what we're studying here is training your mind in thinking and perceiving correctly, which then is foundational to everything that you do. But of course, if you think you're a scientific materialist, then you've denied that the mind even exists. So you don't even question the thought system, because you deny that you even have a mind. It just seems to be the default way, and you don't even question it. So this is why these companies get into trouble, because they don't even question the thought system, and they just play it out. They run the program, and then they experience the distressing consequences and wonder how it all happened. But actually, it was their own false intentions that created it. Okay, so happy to move on. Where are we? Exchange of love. Someone else read. Sue, you want to have a little read?
The exchange of love between seemingly separated minds is one of the most powerful ways these minds can learn that they are not really separated from each other, but in fact expressions of the same love they are giving and receiving, which is infinite and internal and cannot really be lost or gained, but merely is.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Exchange of love between seemingly separated minds. Giving and receiving of love.
It's one energy. It's the same thing. You're giving and receiving the same thing, because there's only one. It merely is. So you can't really lose or gain it. Giving and receiving are how we experience it in this world. But in truth, it's always there. never gone away. So by learning the lesson that as I give, I receive, you're actually learning about the universal oneness that underpins that law. Giving and receiving are an expression of the law of oneness in this world. It's how it plays out in our experience. But what underpins it is the law of oneness. That there's only one mind, there's only one love, and giving and receiving, the truth that, you know, as I give, I receive is true because there's this oneness that underlies it all. Does that make sense? Okay. Can you explain it to me?
So oh, I just love listening to you explain it.
Everyone does, but that's not
I know. It feels so good. Oneness, the love is the oneness, and everything, the giving and receiving of love is the same, which is love, which is what it
of
is.
that law of oneness. So that's how we learn oneness in this domain. We learn it in these specific instances of giving and receiving, and then we learn to generalize. Say, okay, well, if that's true, then oneness must be there. Oneness must be true. If as I give, I receive. See, so this is how we learn it. So Yeshua is teaching us in these specific forms. He gives us a specific lesson like today to give as I receive in truth, and I learn to give as I receive. And he's teaching us the lesson so that we learn oneness through the lesson. We're learning to accept this universal oneness that underlies it. And we start to connect the dots and say, well, actually, that points to oneness, and this points to oneness, and everything points to oneness. So oneness must be the truth. And then slowly but surely we start accepting it and undoing the belief in separation that denies that oneness is even there. Okay, so happy to move on. Next one.
Do you want me to carry on? However, to learn this truth, why we apparently live in the illusion of separation, is our only real purpose here. And the giving and receiving love is one of the primary ways we fulfill this purpose.
Yeah, makes sense.
When you feel more love as you give it freely and unconditionally to others, you must start to realize that you are receiving what you're giving in the exact measure that you gave it, and so cannot lose anything of real value by giving love freely, irrespective of what happens on the level of form, but can only gain a greater awareness of love yourself, which is your highest purpose, while you seem to be in this world.
Okay, pause it there. What's he saying there? What am I saying there?
Yeah, giving love, you're receiving love back in the same, and you're not losing anything by giving love freely. And this is
why is that? Because
purpose.
Why can you not lose when you give love?
Because love is all there is. This is love. Your highest purpose is love.
Well, you experience a greater awareness of love yourself when you give it. You see, that's why you can't lose it.
Yes.
So the more you give it, the more you have the experience of love, the more you feel filled up and happy and joyful. And so you can't possibly lose it. The more you give it, the more you receive it. So that's why the law of giving and receiving is true.
Yeah, you feel the love as you're giving it, so you're receiving the love as you're giving it.
Yeah, which is why to give and receive are one in truth.
Yeah.
But it's not material. You see, you have to get rid of the idea of the material as the domain of giving and receiving. That's not where it's at. So a scientific materialist cannot understand this because they can't understand that there's something that's non-material that you can actually, that's of value and worth. They've denied that, you see. So you can see the problem. The problem of our society is one of a fundamental belief in what's false. If you believe only in this, the exterior domain, that's your mindset, your dogma, and you deny these interior quadrants even exist, how can you possibly accept this teaching of love? That there's this woo-woo funny stuff called love that you can't see, feel, touch, and taste, but it actually really has huge value, and actually in the giving and the receiving of it, we feel filled up, and this is the purpose of life. If you've denied that even exists,
But there is no problem, is there? You just have to give love and you receive it back. That's all there is.
Yeah. But the only problem is a perceptual problem. Our entire dysfunctional system is based on a perceptual problem, that we are misperceiving life. We are not seeing it in its truth. And the beliefs, these false beliefs, then systems that are really unconscious and hurtful. And if that gets systematized, we get a very deeply unconscious system like we have today that's disconnected itself from love because it's denied that it even exists. And so our task as miracle workers is to correct that. See the system is false, it's incorrect. Change our own mind and maybe be part of creating something different, a new system that is integral by nature, that understands this, that all these quadrants are important and valuable, and ultimately that it comes down to individual intentions. That's where the rubber meets the road, which is why A Course in Miracles is such great business training, because this is what starts all of it: individual intention. It doesn't matter if you're CEO of a major corporation or just an employee. It's your individual intention that's going to drive your behavior, and on a collective level, that's going to drive the entire organization. So this is what it comes down to. And A Course in Miracles works on the individual intentional basis. That's all here. It doesn't really talk about behavior and system much. Those are just the extensions outwards of the intentions. So we correct our perceptions. We start seeing it more integrally, start acknowledging the importance of the interior domains, and then we start to heal our minds, and that then extends into the exterior. So our behavior and systems in society start to change because we've changed our minds. So as Yeshua says, seek not to change the world. Don't try and effect the change here, but seek to change your mind about the world. So seek the change in the individual interior, in other words. So you understood the model perfectly, and that this is primary. This is the source of all behavior. So focus on getting this right, and the outcomes will look after themselves. Okay.
It seems really simple, doesn't it? It seems really simple that you just have to give that love out. Yeah, and it feels like that's all there is.
But in this world, you see, love is intangible. So how does that look in an organization? You
but
can't.
Isn't it all about feeling it?
Yeah, but you can't measure that. You see, so what happens is, because the scientific materialists want to measure it, they can measure money and they can measure performance outcomes. So that's what they end up measuring and focusing on, rather than focusing on the feeling and saying, well, actually, how are we feeling? Most corporate executives go, well, that's just woo-woo. You can't base a business on how you're feeling. Don't be ridiculous. We've got hard numbers to meet. We've got targets. We've got goals, objectives. This is the stuff of business. But actually, this how you're feeling and how your employees and how your customers are feeling is primary, because that drives the behavior. Your customers are feeling disenchanted with the business. That's gonna affect their purchasing decisions, and they're not going to buy from you anymore. If your employees are feeling upset and angry and defensive, then that's going to affect their behavior, and they're not going to look after your customers too well. And that's going to affect your bottom line, because your customers are then not going to want your services as much. So it's like, it seems to be straightforward, doesn't it?
It seems so obvious, doesn't it?
It seems so obvious. And yet, as Simon Sinek said, he said, I only have a career because what should be standard and default in our world is not standard and default. So it needs someone like him to go and teach it to businesses because they don't understand it.
Yeah, great.
So it's like, you think, how could we miss it? But we miss it because the paradigm of the ego is so deep-seated and entrenched that and most people don't question it. We get brought up in the culture, we don't question the values. We go through a schooling system that teaches us. We go to universities that teach us, and then we continue with this thought system and these behaviors on into life, and we in our businesses, and we wonder why we struggle, because the entire thought system is incorrect, and it requires someone who's able to go against the general culture, to question it and say, well, maybe this isn't correct, maybe you've got it all wrong, and this isn't correct. So I salute people like Simon Sinek. He's saying, no, you've got it all wrong, and here's why. And he's standing up and he's teaching it. We need more people to be like that and say, no, let's question this and let's actually change it in our organizations. We don't have to run the business like this. We can run it based on love, and that's not some woo-woo way out, like impractical idea. It's actually very tangible, very practical, because we all see the effects of love in our behavior, and if that gets systematized, we'll see it in the systems, and then that creates a feedback loop which feeds back into the interior domains, which confirms that it's true. And then we can have a paradigm of abundance. We can have a lot of value that's been given and received, and the organization can thrive financially because we give a lot of value, and customers are willing to pay for that value. Customers will pay for a good experience. What most companies don't understand is people want love. If they're feeling love from anywhere, they will pay for that experience. They will pay a premium for that experience. If they are getting love from you and they feel filled up and they can't maybe put their finger on and say, but I go to that hotel and I just feel really nice. It's just like such a nice vibe. They'll pay for that. They'll pay a premium for that.
Yeah. And the employees feel it, don't they? The employees feel it.
Yeah, everyone feels it. And you walk into a place and
they give back.
You probably felt this in businesses. Some places just feel good. You go to a restaurant and there's a nice vibe. There's a good vibe, and you go, I feel comfortable here. I feel happy. The staff are friendly. I have a good experience. And we've all had the opposite experience. You go in, there's a bad vibe, and that is, you can't put your finger on it and go, oh, is that? I mean, you can see the effects maybe in the observed behaviors, but there's a vibe. And that is the interior domain that's been established. That's the culture of that whole organization that you're picking up, that then manifests as the behavioral in the system. So it's all coming from the field. You talk about quantum field theory. Rupert Sheldrake calls it morphic field. It's all coming out of the field, which is intentional. It's all mind, and that now gets manifested in the physical. And then that, those are the observed behaviors. But those are just the tip of the iceberg. That's coming from the intentions that have now been these thoughts over and over and over again, and then they get expressed out. And so a business is a field of energy. And if the energy is wrong, if the thought system behind it is wrong, then the product of that energy, the manifestations of it, which are the products and the services and the observed behaviors and the performance outcomes and the systems and structures are going to be wrong. And there's going to be dysfunction because the field is not correct. There's dysfunctions in the field. So our job is to go in here and change it on the mind level. Seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind about the world.
I think it's worth adding also that this whole principle is absolutely correct, and it's also variable day to day. I mean, I went into a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and the vibe was fantastic. And we went back a few days later, and it was completely the opposite. There was just, it wasn't there. Everything was functioning, but that kind of little bit of buzz just wasn't.
Yeah.
And I know in my own, I can think of at least a couple of really good business relationships that really blossomed, but they came to an end. And something happened. In both cases, it was the main person we were dealing with changed, and the mindset of the incoming person was much more materialistic and limited.
So the field changed, in other words.
Absolutely. and I couldn't be involved. In both cases, I had to delegate that contact to somebody else because I just didn't function with that new person.
Yeah, because it's a different thought system. If someone comes
Yeah,
in with a scientific materialist paradigm, and you are a spiritual student and trying to bring the intentional domain into everything you do, then you're at odds. The thought systems don't marry up. You're gonna have conflict. So, but the change came because the person changed, the intention changed, didn't it? There was another person with another mindset, which then affects on an individual level and the collective level. It affects the whole relationship and the whole system that had been going quite nicely. So really, for companies to be sustainable, they need a value system that is based on truth. And that value system is what guides the business through thick and thin. And that value system doesn't change. The values don't change, they're eternal. How the values are expressed can change.
In my case, if I had not handed those two contacts over to somebody who was more similar to them, we would have lost them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was too much. You couldn't have worked with that.
They would have thought me too woolly, too vague, too
yeah, woo-woo. Sounds a bit woo-woo.
Well, not woo-woo, because I never spoke woo-woo, but just not on the same time, just not hard-nosed enough, not quantified enough, perhaps.
Yeah.
They all came from the principle of, well, what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
Where's the bottom line in this, John? Why should we do that?
Yeah.
How do you justify that program?
Yeah. Which is the scientific materialist, you see, performance outcomes. That's what drives it. We measure it by performance outcomes. That becomes the raison d'etre for the business, and everything is driven by observed behaviors and performance outcomes. Where's the purpose then?
And if I hadn't have handed it over to one of our team, it would have folded. We would have lost a lot of business because I would have not converted those people.
No. If scientific materialists to change their mind. I mean, this is a spiritual awakening that you're asking them to undergo, to change their mind fundamentally from scientific materialism to understanding the integral model deeply and understanding that the intentional domain is primary, is a complete flip in their thought system, complete reversal. So, that's not easy to do in a business relationship, is it?
No, I mean, it was, the first meeting, I won't go on, but I was delighted to hand it over. And I was fortunate in having somebody that could take it on.
No. You could kind of work with them on some level and say, okay, well, I understand where you're coming from, and work with us, and not just go, well, sorry, I'm just going to walk away. It's too much. I can't deal with it, which you probably would have. Okay, so where are we? Let's crack on with this because we've got an hour and 15 minutes, so we're aware of the time. So let's just finish. Where are we? When you feel more love. Have we done this one? Who wants to read that? Sally? Yeah. You want to have a go?
When you feel more love as you give it freely and unconditionally to others, you must start to realize you are receiving what you're giving in the exact measure that you gave it, and so cannot lose anything of real value by giving love freely, irrespective of what happens on the level of form, but can only gain a greater awareness of love yourself, which is your highest purpose while you seem to be in this world.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, what's going through my mind is, I know you're talking about business, but I was thinking about bodies. I was thinking about giving and receiving love of the illusionary body, and how the field of energy in the body can be really out of balance, can't it? It can be full of hate or blame or disappointment or whatever. And the performance outcome you were talking about in business just made me think about how the body is perceived to need to be healthy or slim or whatever it is. But it's like, how it's like it's tricky to do that giving and receiving love of your body when you're expecting that outcome. You know, you're expecting yourself to be healthy. It's a catch-22, chicken and the egg thing, isn't it? Where as much as you can say you've got love for your illusionary body, to be able to feel the love, to allow the energy to flow, to be happy, to be well. But, you know, that mindset of it's not doing what I want it to. I mean, Sue, you're experiencing that now. You can't breathe. So it's not doing what I want it to. It's very difficult to love it when it's not performing, isn't it?
It's letting, you see, this is the letting go. You got to let go of attachment to the desired outcome. It's not about the desired outcome and allowing the outcome to affect your intentions, you see. If you do that, then what's leading is the illusion. What's driving your mind is the illusory outcomes. So this entire miraculous process is really saying, let go of the outcomes, because these are illusion. They don't, in fact, really exist. This is an illusory domain. So if you're focusing on them, making them primary and allowing them to affect your thoughts and emotions, then you're allowing illusions to dictate your mindset, and the ego is well in charge. So letting go of the outcomes means that you open up to this experience of love, that there's something else beyond outcome. In that experience, you really go into unconditional love. The whatever the dysfunction is on the behavioral level, in the body or in the business, can disappear because it's coming from the dysfunction that's in your mind. Did you see why letting go absolutely undoes this paradigm, the scientific materialist paradigm, and helps you to undo it and start understanding who you really are, which is your mind. You're not physical. You are primarily mind and spiritual by nature. So it undoes this entire paradigm, which is and it's the only way you can really do it.
We have a kind of thing, don't we, in our society, that what health is, what well-being is. And I know I've worked with a few people over the years who've gone on and passed away, and their healing process wasn't about healing their body. It was about coming to some place within themselves of peace and love and experiencing. And they didn't heal in the possibly perceived society way of getting better and healing, in a physical way. But I always felt the healing was on a different level. It wasn't necessarily primarily about healing the body. That was certainly things I've experienced.
Yeah, it never is. The healing of the body, if the body is just a symptom of the mind, then really you should be healing the mind and letting that healing just extend into the body. That's the correct way of doing it. And that's what the Course in Miracles and any authentic spiritual teaching is trying to accomplish, the healing of the mind, rather than focusing on body conditions. Medicine, you look at Western medicine, it's a system based on the same paradigm, scientific materialism. It's about behavior, it's about the outcomes. The body is seen as a machine, somehow disconnected from the mind. And now we're going to focus on, okay, well, you've got, this recognized problem. Let's say it's cancer. Let's heal the cancer. Okay, so we're going to target the cancer cells. We're going to radiate them. We're going to nuke the hell out of them with chemicals, and this is going to heal the problem. But it doesn't acknowledge that the problem, that's a symptom. The real problem's in the mind. So it doesn't even acknowledge that the mind exists. So you can understand the integral model. You go, most of our systems in this world, business systems, medical systems, governmental systems, etc., are dysfunctional because they're based on a false idea of reality, that the interior domains of life don't even exist, that only the exterior is true and real. Well, that's just completely insane. And so you see that very clearly, and as you go along a path like A Course in Miracles. And then you can undo it in your mind. You don't have to believe in this. The rest of the culture might, but you don't have to believe in it. And then you can become someone who can be truly helpful in changing this. And that's your function as a miracle worker. And you can't really lose, because as you give more love, you gain a greater awareness of love yourself, and you feel like you're on purpose. So whatever the outcome on the level of form is, it doesn't really matter. All right, someone was saying to me, say, well, what if you go to, because we're doing a retreat in Scotland, what if you go there and no one books for the retreat? And I'm like, well, okay, man. It doesn't matter, because I've gone and I've had a good experience, and I've given love, and so the outcome doesn't actually matter that much. You just got to let go of that. But the paradox of it is, if you do let go of it and you're not outcome oriented, that the outcomes are much more likely to flow. It's kind of this weird paradox. The more obsessed you are with the outcome, the more you actually sabotage that outcome from happening. Whereas the ego is saying, no, focus on the outcome. That's the way, and you'll get the outcome. But actually, it doesn't work that way. The more you focus on it and you make it important, you have an expectation, the more you actually sabotage it, because now the ego's got you nicely hooked in, and it's going to use that desired expectation to sabotage your peace and your happiness over and over and over again. So you got to understand how the ego works, which is why I say, coming back to the course, you need mind training to really understand this and be able to operate in the world functionally. And the course is the best mind training I know available in the world. So therefore, it's got to be the best business training as well. Okay, so just a couple more paragraphs to read, then we'll go into the lesson. In case your ego is already finding objections, someone want to read that?
I'll read it. Where are we?
In case you
okay. In case your ego is already finding objections to this teaching, no. This doesn't mean you're supposed to give away all your money to strangers, but rather that you should seek to give and receive love as your primary goal in every situation. And let the Holy Spirit or remembrance of love guide all your words and actions on the level of form. Sometimes this may involve giving and receiving money, but often all that's needed is your loving presence and kindness to whomever needs love in any situation. And the miracle is that when you give love unconditionally in this way, you must also experience receiving it, which teaches you that you cannot lose by loving unconditionally, but only gain.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Well, perhaps bizarrely, what's coming up to my mind is the situation with Ukraine and this kind of, do we send them as many arms as we can, anti-tank guns or whatever it is, or what is the loving presence and kindness that we can express to Ukraine? It may be sending arms, it may not be.
Yeah, well, Holy Spirit's never about war, it's about peace. So if you came from a perspective of peace, saying, well, what's truly helpful for peace, then you're going to get a different answer from the mindset of the ego, which is based on war, conflict. These situations aren't always easy, but there's always a way. If you really asked for guidance, then that would there's actually just coming to mind now, there was a peace intention experiment that a lady called Lynn McTaggart did back in 2000 and something. There was an ongoing long-standing war in Sri Lanka. So they did this experiment. It kind of went viral on the internet, and they picked Sri Lanka because it was kind of a bit remote from the United States. People didn't really know about it, and they were like, okay, well, this will do. It's seemingly independent of us. It's got nothing to do with the United States. It's not really in the collective consciousness of people in the United States or the West, really. And so they just set an intention for peace. And it went kind of viral, and there were like tens of thousands of people involved, and the conflict got worse in the week that this experiment started and everyone was focusing on Sri Lanka, the conflict got suddenly worse and escalated, because the government forces kind of went on an all-out assault after years of not really doing anything. And then, but that was the catalyst for the war to end a few months later. So the outcome was ultimately peace. And that the real shift happened in the very week of the experiment. So you have to go, is that an accident, or were they connected? And if you understand this, you go, well, absolutely they were connected. It wasn't an accident, because quite a lot of people are now putting intention into that situation, thinking about it differently, and that's then going to. Where you want to go, Sammy? Okay, thanks for joining. Then that intention got manifested in the behavior, and the outcome was actually a very positive one. So I don't think Ukraine need help necessarily on the material level. I don't think then sending arms is the way out. I think something like a peace experiment, we start a viral movement for peace in the Ukraine and get people to think differently about that conflict. That's what's actually required. That would be truly helpful. And that might just change the conflict. Imagine if everyone in the UK and everyone in Europe thought differently about that conflict. I can tell you it would change. It would absolutely change. So there's an idea. Maybe that's something we can do. The peace intention experiment. Okay, so last paragraph. Henry, do you want to read the last one, and then we'll go into the lesson? Therefore, correctly perceiving.
Okay. Therefore, correctly perceiving, giving, and receiving aligns you with your highest purpose and is an essential part of the awakening process, which is why today's workbook lesson is not the first or last. Yeshua gives us a lesson on this important topic in the workbook.
Okay, so that leads us nicely into the lesson. That's a little bonus video. Sometimes I give those. So I mentioned Simon Sinek talking about the infinite game in business, in leadership, in life. Talks about how empathy can help you play it. Really interesting. I think you'll find it instructional. So have a listen to that. And yeah, Henry, you wouldn't have received this, but if you're a member, then you'd get this every day.
Okay.
There's resources, material, you can go and dive into it. And what you're starting to see is that this is a universal truth. I include these other resources because where Simon Sinek's coming from, he's talking about the infinite game, is a spiritual underpinning, even though he's talking about it in business and he's not overtly spiritual. He's coming from a spiritual foundation, and therefore he's giving a very different message to these companies, coming and saying there's another way of playing this game, another way of looking at this, another way of perceiving the game of business, another way of playing the game. And he's very successful because he's teaching something different and people are resonating with it. It's needed. He says, I'm ashamed I have a career because I shouldn't need it. Trust and empathy and playing an infinite game rather than a finite game should be default, but they're not in our society. Therefore, someone like him has a function. Okay, so that brings us to the lesson for today. So I'm just
John, I'm going to shoot off now. Okay.
Well, looks like me and you, Henry.
It does, doesn't it? We've been abandoned.
So where are you geographically?
I'm East Anglia, not far from Cambridge.
Oh, well, I'm East Anglia too, near Stowmarket.
Oh, right, yeah, I'm Saffron Walden.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, well, we're going to be there on Sunday, I think, actually.
Oh, right.
Concert.
Oh. Ah, right. There's Saffron Hall.
I don't know.
No, we've got the carnival going on at the moment, so there's lots of things.
Okay.
But I think that ends on Saturday. I think that one does.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Why, I think.
So what happens now? Has he? Oh, he's back.
Yeah,
Hey,
he comes back.
My internet just went off briefly there. I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah, I'm afraid I have to go now. I didn't like to go when you weren't there, but sorry about that. So I will join up for the 3-week trial if that's okay, Jonathan. What do I have to do?
You want to do it?
Yeah, I'll have a go at the trial. Yeah.
Did you say you want to do it? Break up.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, not very much actually. Just give me your mobile number. Join Telegram. Are you a member of Telegram?
Yeah, I'm on there. Yeah. So what do you want? My mobile
Telegram,
number.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Send me your mobile number and
I put it in the chat.
I've got your email address.
You got my email. Okay.
You can,
Should I put it in the chat then? Should I put my?
You can put it in the chat, and I'll just add you to the Telegram group, and I'll add you to the mailing list. And then
there you
just,
go.
You go from there. Every day you'll get a Telegram message. In the morning you'll get some top-ups. During the day you'll get an email message every morning, and just work with the material. And every day there's live sessions. So just so you know, the live sessions are in 12:30 normally. I started earlier today because I have a business meeting, but normally it's 12:30 until about 3 p.m. depending on how long we go. And then
they're very, very long sessions, aren't they? Very long. They feel very long to me.
Just depends on what we discuss.
Yeah.
So join for as long as you can. You don't have to join the whole thing or any of it. So join what you can, and if you don't get the full thing, you can do it as a recording.
Okay.
The recording. So
thank you. I'll be off now. Thanks ever so much then, Jonathan. Thanks, John.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, okay, Henry.
All the best.
Thanks for joining. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's have just the two of us, John. Let's have a look at the text then. So hopefully I won't drop off again. Just let me know if you can see that. Okay, so
got it.
Today I learned to give as I receive. Do you want to read the?
Yeah, what has been given you? The knowledge that you are a mind, in mind and purely mind, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, because you were created out of love. Nor have you left your source, remaining as you were created. This was given you as knowledge which you cannot lose. It was given as well to every living thing, for by that knowledge only does it live.
Okay.
What has been given you? The knowledge that you are a mind, in mind and purely mind, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, because you were created out of love. Nor have you left your source, remaining as you were created. This was given you as knowledge which you cannot lose. It was given as well to every living thing, for by that knowledge only does it live.
Yeah, okay, so a bit of translation. Maybe we change that to extended instead of created. Knowledge that you are. How about we change that to awareness? Let's just see how that reads. That you are awareness. In awareness and purely. What do you think instead of mind?
I prefer mind actually, but
Knowledge that you are awareness, in awareness and purely awareness, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, because you were extended out of love. You want to read the whole?
what has been
Read the
given?
whole sentence.
What has been given you? The knowledge that you are awareness, in awareness, and purely awareness, sinless forever, wholly unafraid, because you were extended out of love. Nor have you left your source, remaining as you were extended. This was given you as knowledge which you cannot lose. It was given as well to every living thing, for by that knowledge only does it live.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
I mean, personal preference, I prefer mind rather than awareness, but
yeah, so I think what we'll leave it, because there's always the original. Someone does. If you don't like the translation, you can always read the original. I think that the idea of awareness is it's more practical in mind. Like, what does capital mind actually mean? In mind, well, you're in awareness. There's an awareness. Mind is awareness, really. So awareness is more experiential. It takes you into, oh, okay, yes, I have awareness. Okay, mind can tend to be a bit abstract. So, oh, okay, mind. Well, what does it actually mean? Well, it means you have awareness. That's what mind means in practice. So, that's why we do the translation. But that's why we've got both. So, if you're reading this in time to come, and you go, oh, well, actually, I prefer mind, then, and mind is more meaningful for you, then you read the original version of the paragraph. So you've got both. Any thoughts on what he's saying there?
Can you just scroll up a bit, John? Yeah. Well, it's reinforcing the idea that we are connected with source, and that we are seemingly a small m mind in within a greater awareness, which has been given to which is shared with every living thing. And through that knowledge, we are forever connected with everything.
So knowledge is just this awareness. Knowledge is the domain of pure formless awareness of perfect love, which you cannot lose. And by this knowledge does it live, because without this awareness, it has no existence. It's kind of, again, perfectly obvious, but we lose sight of this.
Yeah.
Without awareness or consciousness, as some people call it, there could be no life. That's absolutely fundamental to every living thing's existence, that it has some awareness. Otherwise, it would have no life. So, pointing us back to just the very, very fundamental nature of life here. Okay, happy with that?
Yeah.
Number 2.
You have received all this. No one who walks the world but has received it. You have received all this. No one who walks the world but has.
Yeah, so we can maybe translate that. So everyone, he does this double negative thing. No one but.
Yeah.
Everyone. Everyone who walks the world has received it. It's much simpler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say it in the positive rather than the negative.
Does that need to be a capital I? Received it?
You've received all this. Yeah. Maybe, because he's talking about knowledge.
Yeah.
It's given as well to every living, nor have you left your source. This was given you as knowledge, which you cannot lose. So he uses a small k for knowledge rather than capital K, which is also questionable, because you would say, well, maybe that, it's referring to the ultimate truth. Maybe that should be a capital. What do you think?
Well, I would have thought it, yeah, strictly speaking, it should be.
Strictly speaking, it should be. If it's anything referring to ultimate eternal reality, which knowledge is knowledge versus perception, it should really be a capital. So I think let's make it a capital. We'll have to, when we come around to doing it again next year, we'll clean it up. We'll look at, there's going to be instances where it was small k to make it consistent. So knowledge. So everyone who walks the world has received it, and then it would be capitalized. I think the consistency of capitalization helps people to understand what he's meaning.
Yeah.
Not get confused between the levels.
It is not this knowledge which you give, for that is what creation gave. All this cannot be learned. What then are you to learn to give today? Our lesson yesterday evoked a theme found early in the text. Experience cannot be shared directly in the way that vision can. The revelation that the source and the extension are one will come in time to every mind. Yet is that time determined by the mind itself, not thought. Now, it's saying here that knowledge is given to all, but the understanding of that knowledge and the true integration of that knowledge only happens when the individual chooses to have it that way, chooses to accept it.
Yeah. Come by the mind. That time's determined by the mind itself, not taught. So in other words, how much resistance do you have to the message? Because if you've got resistance, then you're actually denying this knowledge and you're choosing separation instead.
Yeah.
So it's already there, he's saying, but it's unconscious. We've blocked it off. We're not aware of it. What then are you to learn to give today? Experience cannot be shared directly in a way that vision can. The revelation, the source. So he's talking here about the highest experience of revelation. That the Father and the Son, the source and its extension, are one. This experience ultimately is beyond learning. It's an experience. So we're talking about the highest levels of spiritual enlightenment, the mystic experiences, grace, revelation. And this will come in time. It is that time determined by the mind itself and not taught. So it depends on our resistance. So our only learning really here is to let go of the blocks to this awareness. That's all we're learning to undo rather than trying to do something. We're trying to undo a thought system to allow this awareness, the knowledge that's always been there to now come forth, to arise in our mind. And that's what this course is about, is the undoing of the ego's thought system so that knowledge is revealed to us. Okay?
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Time is set already. Let's read the translate as we go, shall we?
The time is set already. It appears to be quite arbitrary. Yet there is no step along the road that anyone takes but by chance.
Okay, let's just change that. Anyone takes. There is, so yet no step anyone takes but by chance. Let me just take out the but. There's no step along the road that anyone takes by chance.
It has already been taken by him, although he has not yet embarked on it. The time but seems to go in one direction, but we but undertake it.
Just pause. I'm going to change.
Yeah.
I'm going to change this. Let's make this active. Yet no one. Yet no one takes any. What was that? Control any step. No one takes a step. No one takes a step along the road that leads to truth by chance. I think that's a lot better than the if there is no step along the road that anyone takes but by chance.
Yeah. It has already been taken by him, although he has not yet embarked on it. The time but seems to go in one direction. We undertake a journey that is over, yet it seems to have a future still unknown to us.
Okay, so he has already taken, instead of the passive, see what I'm trying to change this to active. He has already taken every step. He's already taken every step, although he has not yet embarked on it. So there's a paradox. It's like playing with our minds here. He's already taken every step in truth, because we're already back in at home where knowledge is the truth. So it's a done deal, and yet in time we still haven't embarked on the journey. So then these kind of so time only seems to go. Just see, embarked on it, on the journey. Okay. The time only seems to go in one direction. So this is linear time, seems to be linear, past cause leading to the future, but actually that's an illusion. Linear time is an illusion. We only undertake a journey that is over. We undertake a journey that is over already. But it seems to have a future still unknown to us. So there's the paradox. In time, we seem to be on a timeline. So bring up the timeline of consciousness. Might be useful. So we seem to be on this timeline from birth to death, where there seem to be events in a sequence. That seems to be our life. He's saying yes, but the real journey is already over, because you're already back in eternity and knowledge, and so from that perspective, the journey is already over. But in time, it's still playing out on the level of form as in this sequential, seemingly linear way. But our job, while we seem to be on the timeline, is to get ourselves out of the belief in time and this linear sequential reality. And we do that by letting go of our interpretation of all the events in our lives and restoring our mind to this knowledge.
John, I'm just going to get some water. Back in a second.
Okay, yep, no problem.
Okay. Ready when you are, John.
Sorry, John. Just
It's all right.
you go. Have a little break.
Yeah.
Comfort break. Okay, so start recording again. All right, so where were we? Yeah, so timeline. And he's saying this isn't actually linear. We think it's linear on this level, but actually we're already there. So this is already there. This is why it's already a done deal. But in time, it's playing out still on the timeline. And we still seem to have to go through these experiences and seemingly learn our lessons on this level. So as we let go of our attachment, our mental and emotional attachment to these events in our lives, we free ourselves from the linear timeline and we restore our mind to knowledge systematically and progressively. And we start to see more and more that this, it's already happened, as he's saying here. It's actually a done deal already. Although in time, our progression on the linear timeline seems to have a future unknown to us. Actually, in truth, this is our ultimate reality and the end game, and we're already there. It's already in our minds. So, does that make sense? I mean, it's a paradox, but he's trying to explain it as best he can, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's saying that the illusion is made up by us, and we will continue with that illusion as long as we so choose. And that bit is unknown because it's partly because it's largely because it's part of the illusion. But our oneness is guaranteed. So when we eventually come back, we will reunite with that oneness. But the detour may take however long we decide it's going to take.
Yeah. And so it's guaranteed. It's a done deal in eternity. You are there already, but in time it's going to play out according to your script and your willingness. Now, how much resistance do you have to the truth? That's why he says the time is set by the mind already, determined by the mind itself. So how much resistance do you have? How willing are you to listen to the truth, really?
Yes. I had an interesting discussion with that friend of mine who came to stay the other night, and he's a complete disbeliever.
So he's a scientific materialist.
Absolutely and completely. And he's also coming up to 80. He realizes that he's going to go at some stage, but is seemingly satisfied that when he goes, that's it, and that's the end of it. But I was able to put another side of the situation, another scenario to him, which he listened to. I don't think it shifted him very much, but I felt better for actually giving it.
Well, as you give, you receive.
Yeah. I felt.
And you just never know. You plant a seed. I mean, the idea that you just cease to exist is bizarre. Okay, so I have a consciousness, and that's it. End of what? So that's just I've ceased to exist. There's no more me. There's no more consciousness at all. That's it. I mean, I don't know how they can even consider what. So your mind is destroyed. You just obliterate it. There's nothing. Well, that's a pretty terrifying thought.
Yeah.
I just cease to exist. After death. That's it. Well, of course, you're going to have all kinds of dysfunctional behavior if you believe that, because there's nothing else. So just make the most of what you have here. So eat, drink, make merry, do whatever you like here, because this is all there is. There's nothing, lasting. There's nothing eternal. It breeds the whole thought system and patterns of behavior that
Well,
that are functional.
interestingly, such people don't eat, drink, and make merry. You know, they don't party like it's all going to finish. They largely carry on in the way that they were doing so. But very much so. In fact, yes. In fact, they don't party like they used to.
Maybe there's some awareness of. Oh, I think with age, you know, that inclination to get get all excited and party, it just subsides. So I think that's one of the explanations. But maybe there's a kind of a somberness as death approaches. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
What's the point of doing that? Maybe they get that. I don't know. You'd have to get into the mind of a scientific materialist. You'd have to do a introspection and get his get his take on everything. Go, okay, well, it's interesting to understand how you really think about these issues. So why don't you party then? If there's nothing else, and it's all going to end in maybe who knows, a year or two. Why not just go mad and okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy sensory pleasures. I'll use my money for to experience as much as I can in this life, because that's it. It's game over then.
Yeah, and they don't. They don't.
Maybe on some level they don't actually believe that that's all there is.
I don't know anybody that's gone down that route. They carry on as they were, but even in a more conservative way.
Yeah, that's interesting. It might actually help them to do that, because at least break them out of their their conditioned mind pattern, just kind of doing everything unconsciously. So changing something might help them. So, but that's the bondage of the ego, isn't it? It's a very limited mindset, thought system. It doesn't really make sense, because if it was logical, okay, well, it's all going to end soon, so why not just go for it?
Yeah.
Just the body's going to die anyway, so hey, I'm 80. Eat, drink, make merry, take some heroin, what the hell? Have an experience, but they don't, because the mind is in its little prison. Okay, well, I'll just keep doing what I know, what's safe.
And I watched.
It's going to end soon. Oh.
I watched Paul McCartney do a 2.5 hour performance at Glastonbury recently.
Okay.
It was on TV, and he's just gone 80, and he performed for over 2 hours. Okay, his voice isn't as good as it was, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So he's still on purpose. He's obviously still enjoying what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I do it at 80? Who says at 80 you can't sing at Glastonbury? I mean, no one makes those rules.
Yeah.
So, good on him. And there's a deeper kind of purpose that's coming through, I think, when someone's doing that kind of thing. I think he's quite a spiritual guy from some of the quotes I've read. That he's
yeah.
The Beatles went on that whole journey of exploration, and in the 60s of what's it really all about, and they weren't really. I don't think they really bought the whole illusion that everyone spun around, which was quite refreshing. I remember. I think John Lennon, when the band broke up and everyone's in mourning, said, get a grip. It's just a band. It's just we're just a band who's broken up. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just a couple of guys who no longer want to play together. I mean, is that really such a big deal? So I think they had a sense of perspective, and they didn't get sucked in by all of the fame and the money, the girls and all of that. They were quite unusual in that sense.
Yeah, and I mean, during this concert, Bruce Springsteen came on and did a few numbers with him, and David Arl, who's the lead guitarist with the Foo Fighters, he came on, and you could just see how happy they were to come on and play with Paul McCartney.
Yeah, he's a legend. I mean, he's
they just beamed.
Yeah,
and just gave such a new vibrancy to the stage when they came on, and it was like their childhood dream.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, it's, I suppose, like, he's a legend in the music industry. The Beatles are the biggest ever, weren't they? So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. Right, so let's crack on with time as a trick.
Yeah.
Sleight of hand.
Time is a trick, a sleight of hand, a vast illusion in which figures come and go as if by magic. Yet there is a plan behind appearances that does not change. The script is written. When experience will come to end your doubting has been. When experience will come to end your doubting has been set. For we but perceive the journey from the point at which it ended. Looking back on it, imagining we make it once again, reviewing mentally what has gone by.
Okay. So that's kind of interesting. Different perspective on life. So we look at the timeline. The script is already written. When experience will come to end, your doubting has already been set. So somewhere on this timeline, you've actually already made the decision to leave. But it seems to be playing out in time that you have to have these experiences to get there. But actually, because this is eternal, it's always been there. It's already happened. We're looking at it from a timeless perspective. It's already happened. You already are there. It's a done deal. You can't really mess this up. What happens in time cannot ultimately sabotage the eternal knowledge of your own beingness, your own pure formless awareness that you have. So it's coming, this is looking at time from the timeless perspective, gives you a different way of looking at it, which is what he's setting out here.
Yeah.
For we just perceive the journey, we only perceive the journey from the point at which it ended. We can perceive the journey, maybe. Point at which it ended, looking back on it, imagining we make it once again, reviewing mentally what has gone by. Isn't that an interesting idea of life? So actually, as I'm experiencing things, I'm almost reviewing mentally what's already gone by. And sometimes, I don't know if you ever have deja vu experiences, but it's kind of like, oh, I've done this before.
Yeah.
But I know I haven't done it before in this life, but it's like I have done it before.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a sense of it. It's like, actually, I'm just reviewing what's already gone by. The script was already written. And I sort of, in those moments of deja vu, you have an idea of that. There's a sort of a connection to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, places, situations, they feel very familiar, don't they?
Yeah, and even though in this life you haven't experienced them. So, you could say, well, it was maybe a past life. That's possible. It's an explanation. Or the script is already written. This was already, it's like in my script. So if you think of life as a film, and it's going sequence by sequence, frame by frame across the light to now, and then project it out to create the illusion of time and space. The script's already there. Your entire script, the whole stream of film is there, past, future, and so it's already written. And now you can if you go beyond time, beyond the it's just this linear frame by frame experience, you can actually start to tap into what's already happened and see the current frame from the perspective of the whole of time, which is what he's saying. You can kind of review this mentally, and from that higher perspective, maybe make different choices. We're imagining we make this journey once again, merely reviewing mentally what has gone by. A very interesting. I mean, this is not something that's easy to understand with the linear mind, is it? But he's trying to give us a different conception of time and of our lives through that, this paragraph.
So is he really saying? Is he really talking about the benefit of hindsight, learning from past errors?
I think he's talking about the benefit of the end goal of knowledge. So this end game of knowledge now coming into your life and experience and reinterpreting all of your experiences.
Yeah.
So you go, well, the script is written, it's a done deal. I'm already in pure formless awareness. I already am there. If I get that now, I simply interpret this experience from this perspective and say, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm already there. I already have the knowledge. And so that's the reinterpretation of the Holy Spirit of that experience. And now you might find yourself looking at that. Now you come back. So the reverse arrow, the return arrow, is this blue one that now comes helps you to change your perception of that particular situation and see it differently from this higher perspective. So that's what he means, I think, when he says, imagine we make it once again, merely reviewing mentally what has gone by. So you kind of reviewing this from a subjective perspective and go, okay, although this seems to be now, I have this sense of I'm in the eternal now, I'm in this eternal knowledge already, and this has already happened, and I'm rooted in this. So really it's just a dream that I'm looking at, and it's not, of great importance. And so, I'm able to get a very different perspective on it compared with being rooted in the ego and psychologically and emotionally attached to the situation. So, this is demonstrated, what he's saying here is demonstrated quite well by this diagram to how this would work in practice. And if you start doing this, you might get some psychic experiences where you go, in other places in the timeline. So you could then maybe see some of the future, bring that in and go, okay, well, I already have access to that kind of domain. And that now becomes a reference for my experience now. So maybe there's a hint of that here, merely reviewing mentally what has gone by. Because you're actually out of the linear time. And then some people, do develop psychic abilities if they go down this track. They start to be able to see further along in the timeline because it's all loaded, the script is written already. So if you've got access to that, then you can see it, even though it hasn't played out yet. So you're not, that explains why psychic experiences are possible. Okay, so I understand that.
Yeah.
Just trying to change our perspective on time and help us to get out of it. So number 5, just read the direct translation.
The teacher does not give experience because he did not learn it. It revealed itself to him at its appointed time. But vision is his gift. This he can give directly, for your true self's knowledge is not lost, because he has a vision he can give to anyone who asks.
Yeah, it has a vision.
The source's will and his are joined in knowledge. Yet there is a vision which the remembrance of perfect love sees, because the mind of your true self beholds it too.
The mind of your true self. Beholds it too. Okay, so thoughts on that?
So a teacher does not give a teacher could not give experience because experience is experience, but he can give vision. His gift, and that he can give directly, and it can be understood because our true self's knowledge can receive that vision. And because that vision is connected with universal knowledge. Yet is there a vision in which the remembrance of perfect love sees, because the mind of your true self knows it too. And we understand, we see that because our own remembrance of perfect love recognizes it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Vision which the remembrance of perfect love sees. It's the mind of your true self. So remember this is the conception of Christ. You have the true self or Christ, which the remembrance of perfect love is really how the Christ, the true self, reinterprets the world. So if you remember that diagram,
Yeah.
you have source at the top, then you have the true self below it, which unites you with the source. But the self is now the kind of operating mechanism. It's the identity. It's identity, the true identity that you can now express in the world, and the Holy Spirit, remembrance of perfect love, becomes the operating system of that self in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is how you now reinterpret. So the thoughts that the Holy Spirit gives you, thoughts of oneness, are thoughts that are coming from the Christ self. Because the mind of your true self beholds it too. So it's saying really that the Holy Spirit and this true self, the Christ mind, are one. That they're just different aspects of the same thing.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go in a minute, John.
Okay. Do you want to do one more paragraph?
Yep.
Yep.
Here is the joining of the world of doubt and shadows made with the intangible. Here is a quiet place within the world made holy by forgiveness and by love. Here are all contradictions reconciled, for here the journey ends. Experience unlearned, untaught, unseen is merely there. This is beyond our goal, for it transcends what needs to be accomplished. Our concern is with your true self's vision. This we can attain.
Yeah.
So here is the joining of the world of doubt and shadows made with the intangible.
Yeah. Next one, made wholly aware.
There's a quiet place within the world made wholly aware by forgiveness and by love. Can we just qualify that first sentence a bit? I think we've got to understand. Here is the joining of the world of doubt and shadows made with the intangible.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really saying here is the joining? Here is the joining of the. Here is the joining of the world of doubt and shadows connected with the intangible, or evidence with the
world of doubts and shadows. He's talking about the unforgiven world, the ego's world, made with the intangible. So we join with the intangible domain of knowledge. Intangible, it was a quiet place. So it's the world of doubt and shadows, of illusion, brought to the truth. Do you want to say it differently? Here is the uniting, maybe uniting of the world of doubt and shadows. Here is, how about this? Here is the world of doubt and shadows
joined with the
united, with the intangible domain of knowledge. I think that's more explanatory, don't you think?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so you want to read?
Yeah, here is the world of doubt and shadows united with the intangible domain of knowledge. Here is a quiet place within the world made wholly aware by letting go in love. Here are all contradictions reconciled, for here the journey ends. Experience, unlearned, untaught, unseen, is merely there. This is beyond our goal, for it transcends what needs to be accomplished. Not sure about that one. This is beyond our goal, for it transcends what needs to be accomplished. I mean, what he means by the word transcends is beyond, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Transcends what needs to be accomplished. So the true experience, talk about a revelation here. Experience unlearned, untaught, unseen. So there's no perception. Experience unlearned, untaught, and unseen is merely there. So this is an experience of pure formless awareness, of perfect love, a revelatory experience that's beyond time and space. This is beyond our goal, for it transcends what needs to be accomplished. It transcends what, how about can be accomplished?
Yeah, that's better.
Transcends what can be accomplished, right? So what you can accomplish is you can learn to undo your misperceptions. You can learn to undo the ego's thought system. You can learn a different vision. A vision is in the domain of perception, remember? Concern is with your true self's vision. This we can attain, vision and perception. Or maybe even just perception.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is. This is the vision is in the domain of time and space. You're now looking on everything, but it's changed. Your perception's changed. And this true self's perception we can attain. So this is within the domain of time and space. It's what can be accomplished. This is our goal, which will then open the way by achieving this goal. It will open the way for the experience, total experience of pure formless awareness of perfect love to arise in our minds and merely be there when we're ready for that experience. So the revelation will come when we're ready, but in time our job is to correct our perception, and this we can train ourselves to do, and we can attain it. So this is how ultimately perception and vision, the domain of this world, is reconciled with knowledge. We work with perception until we're ready finally for, he says God takes the final step. That means our mind just is so corrected and healed that we just merge, our awareness just merges into the pure formless awareness. And perception and vision and all these, really what we're just training wheels, just fall away, and we just have the experience. True experience of truth, unlearned, untaught, unseen, is merely there. So that's the ultimate destination. But you can't really set that as a goal. You're saying your goal is to change your perception. But the change of perception, that's why the Christ is important. But the getting into the one self and perceiving correctly in the Christ mind is then the opening. It's a necessary step in this world to then open into pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the total experience that transcends even the vision of Christ.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Excellent. So do you need to go now?
I do, yeah. So thank you very much. And
only a pleasure. So there's no session tonight, but we'll have one tomorrow lunchtime and tomorrow evening. So join us then if you can.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Have a good meeting, Jono, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.
Namaste. Bye for now. Okay, so that's me signing off. Thank you for listening. If you've listened to this, and you can catch the recording. I will finish this translation and post this into the group in this afternoon, so you can read the whole thing. There's a few more paragraphs to do. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share.